Yeah, so the history of this is, Dr. Nick did this at Light of the Path, and it was quite, a lot of people really, really enjoyed it. So we have 3 people here who can tell a little bit about things. And I think mostly it's going to be Piero, because Piero has great stories. And I guess most of you know Piero Cerri. He's one of the early students, living in Kopan and then in Dharamsala, and was a monk for a long time and was one of the beginners of FPMT. And Paula de Wys is here, is she also? So I think Paula wants to talk for about 5 minutes first, I think. Is that okay? She's going to talk first. And then at the end, I think we have a special guest who's going to share just a few minutes also, right? And that's Zia. Just a short, do you have long stories or short stories? We don't know. Okay. So, okay, then maybe you should go after Paula, and then Piero can fill in the rest of the time, because I've heard he's got lots of stories. Is that okay? Okay. Whatever. Okay, so we go like that. Okay? So with, motivation to be inspired to practice Dharma, we're going to hear about early stories. Okay, great. Attain enlightenment. Right there.
Oh, I have to sit.
I think maybe we do Zia last. So maybe Piero will stop at about, because we can go over too, maybe about 3:15 or 3:20. That's okay? Yeah. I just said that to leave time for Zia, maybe you stop about 3:15 or 3:20. Yeah, okay.
I'm going to be very short, and I tend to tell the same stories over and over, so I apologize to anybody who's heard them before. So my little stories are just actually almost like an introduction to, thank you, also to Lama Yeshe, because when I first met him, I didn't know anything about Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhism. My husband had met Lama Yeshe and Rinpoche in, I think it was 69 or 70, maybe 1970. That's another story, but we won't get into that. But he used to just call them Zopa and Thubten Yeshe. He used to take them on picnics in his Land Rover. I don't know, maybe Piero and we went with them sometimes too. Then he went back to Holland to raise some money for Zopa's school in the mountains, Laudo. And so then we met, I went out to the east with him. So the first thing we did when we got to Nepal was we took a taxi up to Kopan. And Rinpoche had already left for the mountains to start. That was the first year that the Mount Everest Center, which started, which was a school in Laudo that ended up being the monastery with all the monks now, but that didn't exist then. There were only a few Westerners living in and around. So Mati went out to the mountains, and I stayed with the women and children in Kathmandu and in Bodh and Kopan. And Lama Yeshe, when I first met him, I thought, oh, that's a nice man. I mean, he didn't look special. He looked like the other Tibetan monks. Nobody was treating him in any special way. There wasn't anybody to treat him specially. And he didn't have many students. So he was just, a nice monk. But then I realized, oh, this monk, this nice Thubten Yeshe, he was also very intelligent. And then it didn't take long for that to go further. And I thought, oh, he's not just intelligent, he's extremely perceptive. He really picked up on what was happening. And it didn't take long before I realized he's not just intelligent and perceptive, but he's very wise. because the way he dealt with any situation or any person was spot on, and with an enormous compassion and wisdom. So it went very quickly, for me anyway, from seeing him as just this nice monk who lived there, to understanding that he was an exceptional person, and with an exceptional way of dealing with people and situations. And that leads me to actually what I was going to say about Lama. He had a very special way of dealing with each person individually, and that was a part of his great wisdom. One time when he was in Amsterdam, I was the person arranging the appointments and bringing people in to meet Lama. And so some people, he would stand there and shake hands formally. Some people he would do that to. Other people he would hug. You know, completely different reaction to each person coming in, but it was exactly what that person needed or maybe expected. It just impressed me so much. He wasn't standing there, and he was certainly not standing there being, oh, I am the teacher, I'm the Lama, you want to come and see me, you want an appointment. There was not a shred of that. He was there for that person. He was there completely open to that person coming in for whatever reason that person was coming for. And I didn't stay for the appointment. I just saw the greeting. And that made such an impression on me, because each time he was warm and caring, but somehow he knew. He had that incredible depth of perception to know what that person needed and how they needed to be approached. I thought, that's just amazing. Who can do that? Anyway, I won't tell more stories because Piero's got really a lot of stories. I just want to tell you a story about when I first met Piero. Because I told him that a while ago, and I don't know if he believed me. But I went to the third Kopang course, and Piero had been there earlier, and he came a few days late, and I was staying. He came with a friend of his, Claudio, and they used to walk around big shawls, and he would sing mantras. They would sing mantras. And so actually, I really thought that this is the way the mantra should be sung, because I didn't know any better. So they would do the Tara mantra. Om Tara tu tare tu re soha. Om. It sounded like Italian opera. You know? So for the longest time, I really thought that this is how the Tara mantra was said. You know, Om Tare tu re soha. And that's how I remember meeting Piero. Okay. Thank you.
Ah, like that. Well. So the purpose is, our purpose
is to share experience of being Lama. It's not so much about you, but about Lama.
Why?
Because these people don't know Lama, and they want to know what it was like to be around Lama, what your experience was like to be around Lama. And just some interesting stories, you know. We heard you had good stories.
I wrote a few things because I have no memory. I think, first of all, I would like to explain to you the context in which I met Lama Yeshe. So it was 69. 69 was 68, 69, 67 in Europe. It was a very special moment, and a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts. There was a revolution going on. And eventually, the revolution became a mind revolution, a revolution of ideas, of concept, a way of seeing life. And this got closely interconnected with the psychedelic movement. So 69 in Kathmandu was the moment of the top of the psychedelic movement in the world. So, yes, please. What? I didn't understand.
He doesn't know what psychedelic movement is.
Psychedelic, what is it? Well, psyche is mind, it's movement of the mind, but induce with with substances, induce with substance. Particularly, they refer to the psychedelic movement to one particular substance that was called LSD. Right. So I tell you immediately something about that, So you see, we were considering, we were a group of, youngsters there in the valley, and somehow we had some proud, and, we were not called anymore, our small group was not called anymore hippies. They were called the heads. The heads, means above hippies, And one of the guys around was this Michael Hollister, Michael Hollister. So you see, this Michael Hollister was the one who introduced LSD to Timothy Leary. He went to America. He got, this LSD from Hoffman, who was a Swiss scientist, and he did something. I mean, it's too long. If I cannot go into details, but there's some very interesting story about that. But that's be another time. And so he was there in the valley, and was full of LSD. The valley was just floating. It was unbelievable. Like you go in coffee shop and they have this bottle, and with the drops, and boom, you go. And so. You see, in this contest, eventually I got hepatitis, and I ended up in this beer hospital in Kathmandu. And they put me on, you see, they didn't have beds available, so they put me on chairs, It means one chair one side, one chair the other side. One chair one side, one chair the other side. So that would make a bed, That's where... And it was a little bit difficult, And I always hated, needles in the body, so I didn't take this flavor and so on. But you see, a friend of mine came to see me, and he brought me a book. He said, this book has just arrived from Italy. It's, fresh from the press. It was sent by some friends, So that was the life story of Milarepa, So while I was laying in this kind of a bed, then I read all this book, and, I couldn't stop reading, I couldn't stop reading because, you see, at that point, after the political demonstration in Europe, and after, the psychedelic, there was something that was not getting together, and there was something missing, something missing. At least, I was looking for something. You see, in Kabul, between one chillum and another, I read a book of Alan Watts, Alan Watts, and Alan Watts said, in that book is mentioned about the nature of the mind, and that each sentient being has the nature of Buddha inside him, and that gave me a purpose, a perspective of what life gets. That gave me a hope in life, because that gives you a hope. You see, you're not worthless, Doesn't matter how ignorant you are, how poor you are, how destitute you are, you have this Buddha nature. That is, you know, very, very important, very important. That is all about Buddhism, actually, at the end of the story. So, you know, I read this book, and I told this friend of mine, I said, look, you know, that is, you know, after I read the book, you know, I decided that is exactly what I want to do. That now, finally, I found out what I want to do in my life, you know. And so, you know, I have to look for a Lama, you know, because like Milarepa had a Lama, so I need a Lama, and I need to do that trip, you know. That will be the trip of my life, you know. And so this friend of mine told me, look, you know, I'm taking Tibetan classes from 2 Tibetan Lamas, you know, and okay, I can bring you there, you know, and you can meet them, you know, and you see. I say, okay, you know. Then I eventually arrive up to this Kopan, you know, Kopan, from where everything started, you know. And somehow immediately, I mean, I don't remember exactly, but somehow immediately, you know, we met, you see, Lama Zopa Rinpoche was not there for certain reason, because he was, you know, during some weekends, he was going down to Bodha, you know, to be with the students, you know, like that, you know. So only Lama was there. And this friend of mine said, look, there is this Italian man, he would like to learn about Buddhism, you know. And Lama looked at me, you know, and he said, okay, sure, you know. And boom, he took me, you see what is written in the book. In that book, you know, there is one book that has been published here at the Institute. I don't know if anybody read it, you know. Anyway, yeah, Massimo, this is wrong, you know. There's some, at least, you know, what regards me and meeting of Lama is wrong. So that's now I'm going to tell you. So, you know, it was you know, Lama told me, say, okay, yeah. And then he took me by the hand, you know, and he, you know, he brought me to his room. You know, it was just a few steps away, you know. I was feeling a bit strange, you know, a bit uncomfortable, what is going on, you know. And then, you know, boom, we entered into this room. And the room was a very small room, you know. And it was dark. The room was dark, you know. Not much light, you know. And Lama sat in front of me. I sat there, you know. And Lama, you know, color of his skin is slightly bit dark, you know. The room was dark. Everything was dark, you know. And I said, oh my God, where I am now. And I start to think, how do I get out of this, you know? Because, you know, I was feeling uncomfortable. And then I was just thinking, oh, well, now maybe I just get up and boom, run away, you know. And then Lama, you know, took his Zen, you know, and threw it in front of me. And then there was some statue of Buddha, something like that. I don't remember if he threw also the statue, but also he took the statue. And he said, this has nothing to do with Buddhism. And when he said that, boom, somehow my mind got a flash, you know. I said, oh, wow, that's what I'm looking for, something essential. And then he said, the sky cannot become earth, and the earth cannot become sky. And that was a second flash, you know. So, you know, then he went on. I don't remember exactly what, you know, was there. We stayed some time. I don't remember how long, you know. And then, you know, I think eventually I moved up to in this Kopan, you know. There was almost nobody, you know. It was very fun. I mean, I can tell you a lot about that, but that's not the point, you know. That, then you see there was the Zina. Zina was a nun, you know. That was, you know, Zina, we have all to thank this Zina a lot, hell of a lot. Because if you met the Lamas, if you appreciate the Lamas, then it's due to this Zina. You know, Zina was some eccentric Russian sort of a princess, you know, that had met the Lamas, I think, in Darjeeling or somewhere else, you know, something like Darjeeling. I mean, Rinpoche has incredible stories about this dealing with Zina in Darjeeling. Eventually, she became a nun, you know. She was very particular, you know, like just to give you an idea, you see, this house, you know, this Kopan, you know, was the house of the king astrologer, okay? The king astrologer used to be there, and somehow he left, so they rented, Zina rented. Zina showed it to Lama, and Lama decided, yeah, it's a good place, and they rented. Eventually they bought it, and so on, and then that is another story. So at a certain point, a few people started to come up, in Kopan, and there were this Sunday lecture, Lama was giving Sunday lecture to the hippie population of Kathmandu, so like people that were asking incredible questions, Lama, is it true that the moon fell 3 times in the ocean? And Lama, yeah, possible, who knows, like that. Then you see, Zina put, since there were people who want to see the Lama, then Zina thought that has to be disciplined, So she put a paper, with 5 days a week, with hours, and you could go and put your name, like, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I don't remember, but something like maybe 2-3 hours in which you could see the Lama in the afternoon, I remember it was afternoon. And I waited a few days, and I saw nobody's putting their name, When I went there, I put my name every day. Every day I put my name, Yeah, sure, why not, You see, you see, then Lama would teach me, and Rinpoche would translate for Lama. That was the way he was going, And yes, it was, that make me understand, make me open my mind, make me. You see, eventually, what just in very simple words, what make me understand. I say, look, because I've been around, I read book, saw the hippies, saw this, saw that, and I said, these 2 guys, they are far out. And their mind is far beyond anybody else I met in my life. They might be monks, they might be religious, but it doesn't matter. There's really something special there. That I understood. There is something special there. I said, I'm going to stick around here because something is interesting here. And I just tell you one incident. And then, more and more, I start to see how the Lama were doing, how they were moving, And just to give you an idea, somehow that touched me, That was a moment that touched me. I don't know how you would respond to this, But this, you see, this Michael Hollister, the guru of the LSD, eventually freaked out, a little bit, too much acid also for him, And Zina was a friend of him, Zina knew him. So I told him, come uphill, there are the lamas here, it's good, you relax, make your mind comfortable. So you see, we were in dire straits in Kopan at that time, really, there was no money at all, because Zina had some $200-300 a month she had, and she had to run the whole thing, so the meals, they were, really poor. And one time we were eating, and we were eating all together with Rinpoche and Lama, a table like of 8-10 people, like that, something like that, And this Michael Hollister, all suddenly, said to the Lamas, I don't think that you are as high as people say. I said, my God, what the fuck this guy is saying, like that, And Lama, when he said that, he went like that, with his hand folded, and he said, you are right. And he got up. And Lama Rinpoche, they got up. That was something, something. I don't know if I'm able to communicate the meaning of that, some deep meaning, at least for me, Yeah, Lama say, you are right, with the hand like that, and it showed to me some incredible humility, some incredible frame of mind, like, if somebody is putting you down, usually, at least, maybe it relates to me, if you're going to tell me that, I'm going to reply to you, You're going to hear me, loud and clear, but that was, was like a teaching, it was something special for me, and I said, wow, again, I got more and more confident that there was something interesting there. And then, I tell you another story, in Laudo. That, we jump, we go in Laudo. The Lama were going to Laudo, and I went to Laudo with a friend of mine, It was one of the first time that I went back to Laudo after Rinpoche arrived in Kathmandu, and they were there to build a monastery, but at the same time, they were making a retreat. They were having a retreat, And I was there with this friend of mine, Laudo is very particular, 4,500 meters high. You have to be very careful, about digestion. You have to be very careful about many things because, if something goes wrong there, you're really far away from anything, And one night I had an argument with this friend of mine, We had some intellectual argument about this and that, philosophical argument. And so by the argument, at a certain point, my digestion stopped. And I couldn't breathe anymore, the space of my breath was this much, like that, And I felt, oh my God, here I'm gonna die, I'm gonna freak out. It's like I was thinking, how to go to the next village. The next village is 3-4 hours of walking, So I didn't know what to do, And so Lama and Rinpoche were in the cave. Lama Rinpoche were in the cave during the staying up all the night doing this retreat, these pujas, this thing like that. And I said, okay, I know what to do. I have to go inside. So I went inside, and and I said, I think at first I talked to Rinpoche or something like that, or maybe anyway I said, Lama, I'm dying, I eat too much, And Rinpoche laughed, He had the laugh, I look at him and say, how he dared to laugh that I'm dying, like that, And Lama took me, and he gave me a caress and said, no problem, my dear, no problem. Just sit down here one moment, And they had a skull cap there in front of them, And I don't know what they did. They did something lasting 10 minutes, whoa, 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 like that. Then blow on this skull cap. In the skull cap there was the local beer, Chang, And he said, okay, drink this. And I said, drink this? And I drank that, When I drank that, I tell you, the truth, there was some force, that, make me jump out. I was like, boom, I was thrown out of the cave, and I lay on the ground in front of the cave, And well, that is now is not so nice, and everything came out of me, I mean, from every possible hole that you have in the body, And it was in the middle of the night. So I, and then I was moving around, and I was making dirty everywhere, but I was released. I was alive. I was still alive, still alive, And then in the morning was really heavy, Sister got very upset, Sister of Rinpoche, because she was the one, taking care, and she started to call me Piero Caca, For a long time, I think she referred to me, and now when I send greeting to her, I say, okay, the greeting are from Piero Caca, and people told me that she keep on laughing, like that. Well, and then the Lama went down to Lukla, they had to catch a plane, and there was very, very bad weather, And they just sit down there, they did a short puja, boom, the weather got totally clear, the plane landed, and they left, Then, at a certain point I had to go back to Italy, So this is important about Lama, You see, Lama was never making, are you familiar with what is called mo? Yeah. You know what is a mo? Right. I mean, the nuns and monks, yes. You other people, you know what is a mo? You know? You know? You? You know. Who doesn't know what is a mo? Oh, you and you and you, very few. So mo is a divination, you know. Like, you know I Ching? Have you heard about I Ching? No, neither. Okay, it's a divination, you know. It's a means to see things that are happening in the future. Is a mean of looking at that, of getting some direction, you know. It's better if I take this road or that road. It's better if I go here or there, you know. Things that, you know, maybe to go here or there looks to your mind the same, you know. But, you know, of course there is, you know, of course it can be better. Most probably later on you recognize that it's better if you go there rather than here, you know, like that. So more are used for this kind of purposes, you know. It's good to build a monastery here, or it's better to build it here, or better to build in another place, or it's good for me to do this retreat here in in Pomaia, or better I do in Copan, or better I do in Spain, or, you know, all kind of questions like that. And Rinpoche is very strong in this. Lama is exactly the opposite, you know. He didn't have this, you know, you do through some dice like that in front of in front of the deity. You have to invoke a deity, particular deity, and you throw the dice. There is a book according to the number of more, the number that comes. Then in the books is written, you know, what is, you know, if you ask about health, about medicine, like, you know, for example, is good this doctor for me or is better the other doctor? It means a lot, you know, because, you know, maybe you end up the wrong doctor, you know. So, you know, just to make you, you know, things about the Mo, you know. So Lama never threw Mo, you know. Lama was using his, I don't know if to call it what, you know, by his approach, you know, he was never doing like something like, oh, you ask him a question, he goes into some deep meditation, and he was looking at everything. It's like, you know, never, you know, Lama never showed any sort of particular, you know, realization or thing, just simple. But, you know, he was telling you things about your life, you know, that after they would happen exactly as he was saying. And he was, you know, seeing, he had this power, you know. I think that is why everything that you see, you know, is due to Lama, actually. Of course, Rinpoche, you know, carried on in a fantastic way. But the vision, this place, you see, Lama wanted exactly like this. It's unbelievable, you know. He said a place where there is a community, where there are lamas, where there is people who come, not only exactly only about Buddhism, but also about other science of the mind. And so that was his vision. So Lama had visions, but without pretending, you know, I got a vision like that, you know. You know, he told me, you know, when I went back to Italy, you know, then eventually I went back to Italy because my stepfather died. No, not my stepfather, that was later on, because I think I finished the money, most probably, you know, I finished the money. You see, $300, you know, I left Italy with $300, I stayed almost 2 years, you know, including the trip, including everything, you know, like that. But, you know, living very simply, you know, like that. And so I had to go back, and Lama told me, oh, now you go back. I said, well, I have to go back, but I will come back again. He said, oh, yeah. And he said exactly to me what was going to happen when I was going back. And, you know, and when I heard that thing, you know, shall I tell you what he told me? A bit private. He told me, look, now you go back, you know, and you are, you know, after you stay almost 2 years in India, you know, people will come to you and say, wow, you went to India, you know this and that, you know, because at that time, the in things, you know, the top was to go to India, you know, that was the happening, was India, you know. And so people will praise you, and, you know, the girls will come, you know, and we tell you, oh, Piero, you know, you've been to India, it's fantastic, you know. And so eventually, you know, you will end up, because you see, I have to tell you one thing. From the time I left Italy to go to India, you know, and then I came back, I was a celibate, you know. I didn't become a monk, you know, but I was a celibate because I had other interests, you know, in my life, you know. I was 20, 21, but I was celibate, you know. And Lama had seen, you know, had seen what was going on. It was natural celibacy, you know. And he said, then the girl will come, will tell you like this, and of course, you know, you end up in the bed with the girl, you know. And I say, oh no, Lama, you know, don't you see me, you know, I'm not interested in this thing. And then I thought, you know, oh, this is again is coming up, the religious begot, you know, attitude, you know. That is his view, you know. I said, oh, I'm sorry that he has this kind of view, you know. I was hoping for something a bit more open, you know, like that. But I tell you in a few words, you know, I went back to Italy, and that was word by word, happened exactly what he told me, you know, exactly, you know. And this was not only the only instant, you know, various other times, Lama had this power, you know, that was not a boasting power, but he has this vision, he had some innate wisdom, you know, to see how things were getting together and developing. Like, you know, like Paula first said, he had this personal contact with you. Yes, he was able to see you and understand what were your needs. That was his particular power. Now I tell you another story, you know. You see, then eventually the Lamas, they start to go to the West, you know, to Australia, America, like that. And, you know, I was becoming a bit jealous, you know, of this kind of thing, because I was seeing all these people who had come much later than me that were inviting Lama here and there, you know. And I said, well, you know, what's going on, you know? And so eventually I went, you know, I didn't know what I was saying, but I went to Lama, you know, and I said, Lama, I'm inviting you officially to Italy, you know, like that. You know. And I said, you know, within myself, I said, what am I saying that I have no idea how that could happen, you know? And Lama said, okay, yes, yeah, we come to Italy. Yes, you organize and we come. And well, somehow it happened, you know, somehow it happened. Then later on, you know, you see the Lamas, they were traveling, like you see now, with Rinpoche, there is Roger, there is 2 attendants, like, you know, he had, you know, people helping him, you know. So at that time also there were, you know, but at that time Lama and Rinpoche were traveling together most of the time, you know, or sometime Lama was starting, then Rinpoche was reaching him, you know, but they were together, you know. So, you know, and I was seeing that he was picking up as his helper, you know, people who had arrived later than me, you know. I said, what, these guys, they really, you know nothing. I'm here since much earlier than them. I know much better anything that they might know, you know. So I went to Lama and I said, look, Lama, I have to tell you one thing. He said, tell me. He said, you know, I know much better how to take care of you and Rinpoche, so please, bring, you know, I want to be the one who brings you, you know, who travel with you, you know, who takes care of you in these trips, you know. Lama said, yeah, you think so, better than, and then there was one particular name, you know, I don't say the name, you know, no need, you know, better than him. And I said, of course better than him, no doubt, you know. Okay, and Lama said, you know, okay. And then eventually he said, okay, you are the one who come with us, you know. So the first trip was to go to England, you know, and you see, the first trip was to go to England, and Lama spent 1 month in secret, in a you know, place that nobody knew. They rent a house in some lost place in this England, you know, and it was just Lama and me in this small house, and then a teacher that was teaching him English, you know, and I was there, and I was cooking for Lama and cleaning the house. But that was quite something. That 1 month we spent together was quite something, you know. I was not taking much personal time to ask him questions or take teaching, no, not like that. But every now and then, yes, something, you know. One thing that I remember, you know, I can tell you, because that could be something, you know. Then I asked also to Rinpoche the same question, you know. I said, look, you know, it's like I have some difficulty in this thing of the guru being Buddha, you know. I have difficulty in that, you know. I have difficulty in seeing the guru as Buddha, you know. And I must say, relax. You know when you will see the guru as Buddha? I say, please, when you become a Buddha. And that, you know, somehow pacify my mind, you know. It was an issue. It is an issue for each one of us. It is one of the central point of our practice. I mean, it's, you know, it cannot be, you know, just said in 2-3 words. It's much deeper than that. Very deep subject. But I'm just telling you, you know. Well, Rinpoche, I put the same question to Rinpoche, you know, because then another time, Lama sent me with Rinpoche, you know. Lama sent me with Rinpoche as bodyguard, you know. Yeah, because I'm a little bit tough, you know, actually. You know? He sent me as bodyguard, you know, with him, some place in South India, you know, like that, you know. So there also I had no interaction. I was just doing my job. But one time I asked the same question, you know, and the Rinpoche replied. Rinpoche said, "Your guru might not be Buddha. My guru is Buddha." Just like that, you know, just like that. And then you see that this is another interesting thing, I tell you, you know, because something has some meaning. This, you know, you see. Then after staying 1 month in that house in England, you know, we were having, you know, 1 or twice came some big shot from the FPMT to check that everything was all right, that everything was fine, you know. And boy, I was cleaning the house a lot before they came, just to make sure that everything was fine, you know. And so eventually we moved, you know, some more lesson in London at this, you know, they call it British school. You know, in London there is some original British school, you know. So we were guests, you know. There I had quite a hard time in London because we were guests of this rich family, you know, well-to-do family, in a some beautiful house in this some very posh part of London, you know, 2-3 floor house like that. And this lady, she had, you know, daughter and sons, you know, about my age. And these guys, they were always partying, you know. They were partying all the time. And me, I was in monk robes, you know. And I was seeing these, and, you know, well, it's not that I wanted to party, but, you know, I felt like, you know, really being, you know, left out, you know, like that. You know, I was very, and also I was bringing, you know, Lama to the lesson, to the classes, and then classes was 1.5 hours. It was too long to come back to the house, so I was hanging around in this Piccadilly, Trafalgar, whatever the hell it is, you know, with the monk robes, you know, really, you know. Really not comfortable, you know. I think monks and nuns know what I'm talking about, you know. And then, you know, now is the point, you know. Then you see, at certain point comes one telegram, you know. So they were giving to me the mail that was, you see, there was no internet, no this kind of things, you know. So one telegram comes, you know. This guy was a very nice guy. I don't know where he is around. The one who organized concert, Jeff, right, you know, he was the one, you know, really nice, you know. And he brought me a telegram and he said, look, this telegram has arrived. I don't understand the meaning, but, you know, please, it's for Lama, you know. Telegram was for Lama. Then I read the telegram, you know. And it was, I thought, you know, it was signed it was signed Zopa, you know. It was signed Zopa, you know. Because you see, Lama was calling Rinpoche Zopa. You know, Zopa will do. You see, every time Lama was entering into the room of Rinpoche, Rinpoche was getting up. Rinpoche was always getting up. So there was a telegram, I just tell you the telegram, then we stop. So the telegram was, I must come back to laughing mood, So the telegram was, something like, your kindness is, beyond all the oceans of the universe. And, I thought, but this is a sort of a hippie sort of a talk, And then he was saying, and you have to excuse me, this time I cannot come, Because you see, after England, we were going down to Europe, Germany, Italy, Spain maybe, and, then the two lamas, they were teaching together, like that, And you have to excuse me, this time I cannot come, signed Zopa, And I read it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and and I didn't show to Lama for 1 day, because, it didn't look like, coming from Rinpoche, And then I said, we were in the taxi. I still remember very well. We were in the taxi, the taxi from that house to this, teaching classes, either going or coming back, And I said, Lama, there is a telegram, from, it is, read me the telegram, when I write the telegram. I say, yesterday, and you wait up to now. I say, I could not understand. You don't understand? Maybe I understand. Okay. So I read word by word the telegram, and I said, but Lama is from Rinpoche. He said, of course it's from Rinpoche, 100% is from Rinpoche, I understand. Because you see, the point was this. Rinpoche was in Laudo, in his cave, and he was doing retreat. That was the time that Rinpoche had decided that he was going to do retreat for the rest of his life, just staying in retreat. That, you see, I met, when I went up to Laudo, then I went to Tiampoche, which is a place nearby, beautiful place. If you go up there to Laudo, go to Tiampoche as well. There is a monastery and so on, And there I met one man, that told me, you are here, you came, you went to Laudo. He said, I met the Laudo Lama. He told me, I met the Laudo Lama. He said, the Laudo Lama at a certain point started, stop eating. He was not eating anymore. And he was just meditating. And he was only drinking chang, this Tibetan beer, That's all. And more he was drinking chang, more he was meditating, more his meditation was like, like blowing, like that, he told me that. So you see, Rinpoche was in Laudo at that time when he sent the telegram, and he didn't want to come for the courses in Europe, And he said, Piero can do, like that, So Lama told me, no. You reply, and he gave me a reply that there was no, but he was, very, very calm, his reply. He said, I understand, but no, it's not possible, because all the courses were already organized, same like this course, already organized, cannot be like that. And then Lama told me something important. That is what I want to tell you. Huh?
After that we stop.
Yeah. Lama told me something important. He said, who doubts Rinpoche doubts Buddha. Don't forget this.
All right, thank you. This is Zia Bassam.
I've never spoken in the mic. So, not to waste time, I'll just continue with what Piero just said. Because I was with Rinpoche in Laudo at that time. And I was his assistant, and we were supposed to come, we were doing the Nune. We were doing the Nune, which Rinpoche went up for every year. And we were supposed to come back down to Delhi and then join Lama in Italy for the rest of the tour. And of course, Rinpoche didn't want to come down. And as Piero said, and then Jackie came up in a helicopter, straight up to bring him down. We went to Italy, and Rinpoche had lung all the time. Terrible lung. He was like this all the time. But Lama, just like a mother, took such care of him, so loving and so tender. Every day he made for him soup with meat and bones and stood there, sopa. And Rinpoche wouldn't eat, he'd just sit there like until he would have. And he just took care of him. As he always did. As a father and a mother, that's what he was to Rinpoche. And it's okay, I don't need it. Just a moment. And then after that, Rinpoche was okay. I just wanted to say that part about the lung because I think it's really important to also know how much the lamas have to give up for what they do. And then, so I'll go back to when I met Lama. And Rinpoche, I was living in Ibiza, and I was already kind of very interested in a spiritual path. And Lama and Rinpoche came for their first course in Spain, in Ibiza. And I had just met Paco, who was going to be Lama's father in his reincarnation. Anyway, I'd had a dream before, so when they came, I did recognize this was the teacher I was waiting for. It was Rinpoche I met first, because he was teaching. Lama would come in the evening and give a talk, but he hadn't come yet, so I'd only met Rinpoche. And so I asked Peter, who was the assistant then, if I could meet Rinpoche. So he brought me to the house they were in, but he didn't take me to Rinpoche, he took me straight to Lama Yeshe. So then I met Lama. And so Peter introduced me, and he said, "This is the girl whose car you've been driving and you crushed." So that's how we met. And then after that, when I became a nun, and then right away they put me in the kitchen, and I was, like Peter was Lama's assistant, and I was Rinpoche's assistant and the cook, as we did the tours all around. And so I'd be in the house cooking, and sometimes he'd send Rinpoche in the kitchen to help me, and Rinpoche would go and teach, and Lama and I would be in the house, and the relationship, I can only talk about it in a personal way. I don't have some fantastic stories, entertaining ones. Anyway, nothing funny to say. But we had more of a... We'd just talk about things, about life, about cooking, about dreams, about clothes. Not clothes, but he liked good fabric, and we'd go shopping, and we shared that kind of thing. And whereas Rinpoche was, at least outwardly, he was very much more the traditional one, Lama was completely the opposite. That he did tell me once that when they went to, His Holiness first came to Europe, to the centers, and I didn't go. Lama said, "No, you stay with Rinpoche in Nepal." But when he came back from the tour with His Holiness, he said to me, and he used to wear his clothes, different colored zen and different like fuchsia and all kind of different colors. You know, and he just wears robes, you know, like this. He was very casual. And he told me, you know, dear, my students say I'm a hippie Lama. And they said I dress terribly for His Holiness. So we used to talk those kind of things, you know, that kind of... So I just want to, you know, all his qualities. I want to just skip and go on to some of the personal things with him, which then connect to Lama Osel, because for me they are the same, exactly. It's the same stream of consciousness. And even though many people find it difficult to relate to the manifestation, in my own personal experience, at every time, he really let me know who he is. So that's the aspect I want to talk about, because it's not the past I want to talk about, because that's the present now. So for me, he's only a further evolvement of what Lama already was. And for example, Lama never was traditional, never. He was extremely humble, the most humble Lama. He was known for his humility, but even though he got the Geshe degree, he absolutely refused to go and get it, because apart from all the money he had to spend, which he didn't agree with at the monasteries for that, he didn't need that status at all. And so he cut through everything, everything. Initiations were short, straight to the point, and straight from the heart. And even in advice to students, what impressed me about him was he always gave you the power. When people always say, Lama, what should I do? This, that, this, Lama. And he says, you decide, dear. And he gave it to you. Use your wisdom, dear. So, you know, he said he never wanted to babysit. So that was the kind of side of how he interacted with students. He sort of helped you reach into your own, not be so reliant. Do you know what I mean? And then, so later, I'm trying to connect quickly. When Lama was going to pass away, anyway, so we shared this. So then for many years, then I was also in Kopan, housekeeping, cooking, doing all of that for them after the tours, because Lama wanted me to continue. And one day, he gave me this book in my hand. We used to talk a lot about dreams. And he gave me this book, and he said, write your dreams, dear. So from that day, I started to write. And then, when he was going to America, before passing away, and he said, no, dear, you don't come, you stay here, because I think it would have been difficult for me. He said, he wrote me a letter, he said, don't worry, my boy Sopa and he'll take good care of me. He said, don't you worry. And he said in the letter, so we have, which he always said, and I don't think it was only to me, we have telepathic communication, dear, don't we? So he said, you will know my body. That was the last communication from Lama. So many years later, I was in Dharamsala, and then Rinpoche came. He had been to Spain, and he came up to Dharamsala, up the streets, up the steps, and Dr. Nick was with him. And Nick had this little boy, 2.5-year-old, on his shoulder. And I looked, And I knew. I ran up to this little boy, and I looked down at the feet, you know, the little baby feet. And I just saw Lama Yeshe's feet. And I just put it to my head, and I knew it was Lama. So I did recognize him, his feet. But so did Dr. Nick. He also knew his feet. So these are just little things I want to connect. And then after that, as he grew up, Rinpoche would keep wanting me to take care of him and Sarah, so I would go in between traveling. I'd go spend 3 weeks with Lama and Sarah as he grew up. And so the same thing. What we did was play together in a way that Lama and I did. But of course, there was the deeper levels of Dharma on that level, you know. It was never in a formal context. And so it was with Lama also. But he had this terrible, he felt so burdened by the expectations that everybody had of him, of the role he's going to play. And that really, really troubled him throughout his childhood. And so I saw him going through that part. And then later, am I going too far? Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so again, one time we had this little fight over, we were making magic, you know, flying capes when Lama was about 7. So in our play, he used to imagine and do a lot of things, be very creative, which exactly was what Lama was. He was very creative in unusual ways. His altar was not like any Lama's altar at all. It had little animals and landscapes and all kinds of things. So Lama also had this dream world. And so we made this cape, and then something happened. So he got really angry with me. So he sat down at the table and he refused to eat. And he had this tantrum, you know. He had this anger that Lama Yeshe would manifest. Especially if anything was broken of Lamas, he got furious. So he was manifesting the same thing. So he raged, you know. And I was so afraid. All I wanted him to do was become the Lama and do what he had to do. So he said, I'm not going to teach, I'm not going to this, I'm never going to this. And I just burst out crying. And I said, Lama, please, Lama, please. And then suddenly he looked at me and he said, okay, come. And he took me to his room. And he was only 7. And he took this picture of himself as a young, you know, sitting on a throne with the Lama Tzong Khapa hat. And he said, oh, okay. And he gave me that, showing me that he will. So anyway, I'll go fast track. Then later he wanted to know the normal world, as you know, and so he didn't stay a monk. And so in Ibiza, we had another phase of our relationship, which continued where he'd manifest who he was, just in the things, exactly the things that Lama Yeshe told me would just come out of his mouth. Deep wisdom. Anyway, so at one time, like one example, I was in retreat, and of course he didn't care about if you were doing retreat or not. He'd just come and burst in suddenly, which actually even Lama Yeshe used to do. And of course after that, the whole retreat changed. That's all he needed to do. It was like, with no words, one look, like for me, a real master. And you just know or you see what it is you need to see. So that's Lama also, which the same was of Lama Yeshe. But also I want to say one thing about Lama Yeshe. Even as Lama Yeshe, he did want to explore and meet people on a one-to-one intimate level. And so often on the tours or whatever, he would take off, not in his robes, looking just like everybody else, and go by himself amongst the people to meet the people. So to me, Lama Osel, you know, it was Lama was already preparing for that. So I'll just say one little story and then I'll close it. And then he, so one time I was in this retreat in Ibiza and he'd been in Venice. I think he was 18, 19 by then. And he came, it was late at night and suddenly bang, 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 bang on the door. And there he is with his brother. And he says, I have a present for you. And so he puts in my hand this beautiful, from Florence, plume pen, you know, with ink, the old-fashioned. He said, so that you write. Yes. So anyway, there were many, many, many things like that. And he'd had no idea. But he was, you see, he intuitively says the same things. So anyway, so coming back to Lama now, so the universal education was something I think many students, we didn't understand what it was about. Because generally we cling on to, you know, the traditional way of presenting Dharma. And so for me it's like he's really coming ready to do that, you know. And in a way that it's in a sharing way, you know, with the people of his generation who are not so, what's the word? Restricted by ideas of tradition, so they are more open to the universal education, which is, of course, Dharma. Just what His Holiness is doing. It's called, what does His Holiness call? He started these schools all over called Educating the Heart. Not the mind, the heart. So Lama Osel, to me, is a Lama of the heart. He speaks from his heart, doesn't pretend he knows something when he doesn't, decides things from the heart, is pure love from the heart. So I just wanted to say, that's not the past, it's all one stream. It's just an evolution and a completion of what he came to do. Thank you.
Zia is usually very shy, so this was a real treat. I think it's the first time in 40 years she talked in front of a crowd of people. Great. Okay, well, let's just take a 20-minute break, if that's okay. We'll come back a little after 4 and do our session. And thank you so much, Piero and Zia and Paula. Or Sherry.